I stood there in my red dress watching my husband dance with her. The way he held her waist, the way she laughed. That's when I knew. 3 years of playing the perfect wife, and he threw it all away for a woman who didn't even know his mother's name. If you've ever felt invisible in your own marriage, this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because what I'm about to share will show you exactly when to walk away and never look back. Let's get into it. You know that feeling when you think you have everything figured out? That was me 3 years ago. I had the career, the beautiful home in the suburbs, and a husband who I thought loved me more than anything in this world. His name was Gerald. And when I met him at that professional conference 4 years ago, I swear I thought God himself had answered my prayers. He was charming, ambitious, well-spoken, and he pursued me like I was the only woman in the room. We got married a year later, and I walked down that aisle thinking I had finally found my person. But here's the thing about love. It can make you blind. It can make you ignore the little voices in your head that whisper something's not right. And I ignored a lot of those whispers. I ignored them when Gerald started coming home later and later from work. I ignored them when he started keeping his phone face down on the table. I ignored them when he stopped asking me about my day. When the conversations became shorter, when the intimacy became routine instead of passionate. My girls tried to warn me. They'd say things like, "Girl, you sure everything's okay with Gerald?" Or, "Have you checked his phone lately?" And I'd defend him like my life depended on it. I'd say, "Y'all are just paranoid." Or, "Not every man is a cheater." I believed in my marriage. I believed in him. Looking back now, I realize I wasn't just trusting him. I was scared. I was scared of being another statistic. Another black woman with a failed marriage. Another person who couldn't make it work. So, I held on tighter, smiled wider, and convinced myself that everything was fine. I threw myself into being the perfect wife. I cooked his favorite meals, kept the house spotless, supported his career moves, attended every work function he asked me to attend. I thought if I just loved him hard enough, if I just showed up enough, he'd remember why he married me in the first place. The invitation to his company's anniversary party came on a Tuesday. Gerald walked into the kitchen while I was meal prepping for the week and said, "Hey babe, we've got that big company party on Saturday. You're coming, right?" There was something in his voice, something nervous, but I brushed it off. I had a major deadline at work and had planned to spend the entire weekend catching up, but I saw this as an opportunity. Maybe a night out together, dressed up and fancy, would reignite something between us. So, I said yes. I went out that week and bought a stunning red dress, the kind that hugs you in all the right places. I got my hair done, my nails done, the whole 9 yards. I wanted him to look at me the way he used to. Saturday evening came, and I felt beautiful. The dress fit perfectly. My makeup was flawless, and for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Gerald looked handsome in his navy suit, but when I came down the stairs, he barely looked up from his phone. No compliment, no whistle, nothing. Just a quick, "You ready?" and we were out the door. I should have known then. I should have felt it in my spirit that something was very, very wrong. The venue was gorgeous. Some upscale hotel ballroom with crystal chandeliers and live music. Gerald's company had really gone all out for their 15th anniversary. We walked in together, his hand on the small of my back, and for a moment, I felt like a couple again. But then I noticed how his eyes kept scanning the room. He was looking for someone. Every time someone walked through the door, his head would turn. He introduced me to a few of his colleagues, but the conversations were surface level. Rushed. He kept checking his watch, kept glancing toward the entrance. Then the live band started playing. It was one of those fancy events where they had actual ballroom dancers and encouraged guests to join in. I was standing by the bar sipping champagne and chatting with someone's wife about nothing important when I saw Gerald excuse himself. He mumbled something about needing to greet his boss and walked away. I watched him weave through the crowd, and that's when my entire world shifted. There she was, a woman in a sleek black dress, her hair pulled back in an elegant bun. She was beautiful. I'll give her that. But it wasn't her looks that made my stomach drop. It was the way Gerald's face lit up when he saw her. It was the way he walked straight to her without hesitation. It was the way he took her hand and led her to the dance floor like they'd done it 1,000 times before. The band started playing a tango, and I watched my husband, pull this woman close to him, his hand on her waist, her hand on his shoulder, their bodies moving together in perfect sync. They knew this dance. They'd practiced this dance, the way he looked at her, the way she smiled up at him, the way they moved like one person. This wasn't some friendly colleague dance. This was intimacy. This was familiarity. This was everything I thought I had with him, except he was giving it to someone else. I couldn't move. My feet were glued to that spot by the bar. The champagne glass in my hand started shaking and I had to set it down before I dropped it. I looked around the room and that's when I saw them. The knowing glances. Other people were watching too, but they weren't shocked. They were knowing like this wasn't news. Like they'd seen this before. Some people quickly looked away when they caught my eye. Others just stared, waiting to see what I would do. I felt like I was drowning, like the room was spinning, and I couldn't catch my breath. I needed to get out of there, so I turned and walked as calmly as I could toward the bathroom. My legs felt like jelly, but I kept my head high. I wasn't going to fall apart in front of these people. Not yet. The bathroom was one of those fancy ones with a lounge area and soft lighting. I gripped the edge of the marble sink and stared at myself in the mirror. My makeup was still perfect, my dress still stunning, but the woman looking back at me was broken. I didn't even recognize her. How long had this been going on? How many times had he lied to my face? How many late nights at work were actually late nights with her? That's when I heard the door open. 2 women walked into the lounge area laughing about something. They didn't see me standing in the bathroom stall area and they started touching up their makeup while gossiping. "Did you see Gerald and Leslie out there?" One of them said. "Bold of him to bring his wife tonight." The other one laughed. "Girl, that man has no shame. Everyone in the office knows about them. They've been sneaking around for like 1.5 years now." My heart stopped. 1.5 years, 18 months, while I was at home cooking his favorite meals and ironing his shirts and believing every lie he told me. He was building a whole separate life with someone named Lizzie. I heard she works in the marketing department. The first woman continued. Apparently, they go to lunch together every day. His wife probably has no idea. They both laughed, fixed their lipstick, and walked out. I stood there in that bathroom, shaking, tears streaming down my face, ruining the makeup I'd spent an hour perfecting. But something happened in that moment. Something shifted. The tears stopped, the shaking stopped, and a cold, clear fury settled over me. I walked back to that sink, washed my face, and reapplied my lipstick. I smoothed down my dress, straightened my shoulders, and walked back out into that ballroom like I owned the place. Because you know what I did? I was Gerald's wife. I was the woman who had stood by him for 3 years. I was the woman who had sacrificed and compromised and loved with everything I had. And I was about to remind everyone in that room exactly who I was. The tango was still playing when I walked back onto that floor. Gerald and Leslie were still wrapped up in each other, lost in their little world. I walked straight up to them, my heels clicking on the marble floor, and I stopped right beside them. Gerald saw me first. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might pass out. He stumbled, breaking the dance, and Leslie turned to see what was wrong. "Having fun?" I asked. My voice was calm, steady, cold. Gerald started stammering. "Babe, this is just I held up my hand. Don't insult me any further." I turned to Leslie. "I'm his wife. Did you know he had a wife?" Her eyes went wide. She stepped back from him like he'd burned her. "Wife? Gerald, you said you were separated." I finished for her. "Getting a divorce. Let me guess. He told you I was crazy. Controlling." that we hadn't been happy in years. The look on her face told me I was right. I turned back to Gerald. The music had stopped. People were staring. I didn't care. I reached down and slowly pulled my wedding ring off my finger. The ring he put on my hand 3 years ago, promising to love and cherish me forever. I took his hand, placed the ring in his palm, and closed his fingers around it. "You can have this back," I said, "because clearly you forgot what it meant a long time ago." Then I turned and walked away. I walked through that ballroom, through those double doors, past the valet, and I didn't stop until I was in my car. And then finally, I let myself break. I sobbed so hard I thought I'd be sick. I screamed until my throat was raw. I beat my hands against the steering wheel until they hurt. But then, after what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, I stopped. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror, and I made a promise. This was the last time I would cry over Gerald. This was the last time I would let him make me feel small. The next few weeks were a blur. Gerald called me 73 times the night of the party. 73. He texted me hundreds of messages, each one more desperate than the last. "Please come home. Let me explain. It's not what you think. I love you. She means nothing to me." I blocked his number. He showed up at the house the next day, banging on the door, begging me to let him in. I called the police. His mother called me crying, asking me to give him another chance. I told her to raise her son better and hung up. I found out later that Leslie broke up with him that same night. She had no idea he was married. She thought she was dating a successful single man who was ready to settle down. When she found out the truth, she wanted nothing to do with him. So Gerald lost both of us in one night. And honestly, that felt like justice. I hired the best divorce lawyer I could find. I didn't want anything from him. I made my own money, had my own career, my own savings. I just wanted out. I wanted my name back. I wanted my life back. The divorce was finalized in 4 months. 4 months to undo 3 years of marriage. It felt both too fast and not fast enough. Gerald didn't take it well. He spiraled. His work performance suffered. He lost weight. He looked terrible every time I unfortunately ran into him during the divorce proceedings. He sent letters to my office, flowers to my house, gifts I immediately donated. He tried everything. But here's what he didn't understand. I wasn't the same woman he'd married. That woman who ignored red flags and made excuses and put his needs above her own. She died the night of that party. The woman who emerged from those ashes knew her worth. And her worth was more than being someone's option. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into him at a coffee shop. I almost didn't recognize him. He'd aged 10 years and 6 months. His eyes were hollow, his suit wrinkled. He saw me and froze. I could have walked away, but something made me stop. He walked over, hands shaking. "You look good," he said quietly. Happy I was. I'd gotten a promotion at work. I'd traveled to 3 countries I'd always wanted to visit. I'd reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I'd started therapy and learned to love myself again. I'd learned what red flags looked like and promised myself I'd never ignore them again. "I am happy," I told him. "Good," he said. And I could see tears forming in his eyes. "I'm glad. I'm so sorry for what I did to you. I was stupid. I was selfish. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me." I looked at him, really looked at him, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no longing, just nothing. "You're right. I said you did, but thank you for setting me free." And I walked away. His regret came too late. And honestly, that wasn't my problem anymore. If this story spoke to you, I need you to do 3 things right now. 1. Hit that like button if you believe in walking away with dignity. 2. Subscribe and ring that bell because I share real stories about real women who chose themselves. And 3. Drop a comment telling me, would you have stayed or walked away? Your story matters. I'll see you in the next one. Remember, his regret is not your responsibility.